Good afternoon. Thank you, everybody, for being here to support the Peterson family. Today, we honor the life of Michael Peterson, beloved spouse of Susan, father of David and Sherry, Ryan and Hallie, Scott and Allison, Eric and Leah, beloved uncle of Sharon and Paul and Danny, beloved grandfather of Lindsay, Rachel, Jake, Marley, Josh, Kyla, Jonah, and Asher, and beloved great-uncle of Bailey and Alex, Harley and Jacob, and Juliana. Michael was larger than life. He was a fierce protector of family, friends, and perfect strangers in need of someone to defend them. In so many ways, he lived for others, and he might have felt a bit uncomfortable being the one talked about, being the center of attention like this. But when you live a life as big as he did, as impactful as he did, filled with as much love as he did, we can't help but fill the room with memories of a truly great man who will be sorely missed. We'll begin our service today with ancient wisdom to comfort our grieving hearts, followed by memories and remarks from his loving family. We begin with Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, binat desher yarbitzeni, al mei menucha yenahaleni, nafshi yeshovev, yancheni b'maglei tzedek lema'an shemo, gam ki elech begates al mavet lo ira ra ki ata imadi, shivtecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai, dishanta v'shemen roshi kosi revaya. Ach tov v'chesed yirbefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. And if you know it, please recite the English with me. A psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. A season is set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for planting and a time for reaping, a time for keeping and a time for discarding, a time for loving and a time for hating, a time for embracing and a time for refraining, a time for slaying and a time for healing, a time for laughing and a time for weeping, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. I'd like to invite the family up now. We'll begin by hearing from Scott and Allison, Michael's son and daughter-in-law.
I'd like to welcome everybody for coming today. There are no words to describe how I'm feeling. However, I'm going to try my best to describe my dad as I knew him and what he meant to me. Some of my fondest memories as a kid were our summer vacations to Lakewood, New Jersey to visit our grandparents and our cousins. Those trips were magical. I can still remember every detail of that house on Iris Road. I remember how each room looked, how they felt, how they smelled. It was a mystery to my brothers and I, and the more we discovered, the more we learned about my dad's family and him. The only thing better than seeing Grandma Betty and Grandpa Goody was playing with our older cousins, Danny and Sharon. We worshiped them. Everything they did was so cool, whether it was Sharon trying to teach us how to do handstands and aerials, or Danny playing the drums for us in the basement and teaching us about bands like Kiss. They showered us with attention, and we couldn't get enough. We loved going to the beach and Seaside Heights amusement park, swimming in the ocean, walking along the boardwalk, and sampling all the food we could. Food was always a big part of our New Jersey experience. We used to love getting sub sandwiches at a place called Mike's Subs, which you might know as Jersey Mike's now. We needed to go there. He couldn't tell us about his home. He needed to show us. See, you can't understand our father without understanding where he came from. That rough and tumble sort of life that was blue collar, wild, and loving, all rolled into one. Even though he left New Jersey, it was always with him. It was in his blood. Dad was passionate about everything he did, whether it was working or boating or just being with his family. He had a passionate intensity about him. He was so present. He loved his family fiercely, and that kind of love inspires the same in return. I'll never forget when we went to David and Sherry's boat on Chautauqua a few years ago. Dad was 76 years old. Do you think that would stop him from getting in the water and to go tubing with Josh and Kyla, our kids? Of course not. That's the kind of dad and papa that he was. I sometimes think of Dad as like a cannonball that was shot out of Lakewood, New Jersey, and which landed at Kent State University. He came to Northeast Ohio knowing nobody, and he built a life here. But his greatest accomplishment was creating a family. He had 5 sons, and we are so lucky to have 5 brothers. I'm so lucky I even have 2 brothers named Eric. If you need further explanation, we'll be handing out family trees after the service. Dad, your final act was your greatest. Even when you were in hospice and you were lying in bed. Even when you were in hospice and were lying in bed and you couldn't talk or eat and could barely open your eyes, you still managed to do what you always loved. You brought us all together to be with you one last time. You were the best dad and papa we could ever imagine, and we'll always love you.
Next, we'll hear from David and Sherry.
Okay. Well, I never saw Scott get so emotional. I didn't know he was so funny either. This was way easier in the shower this morning. It's pretty good, actually. But catch my breath. Okay. So also, I want to thank everyone for coming to support our family, my dad and Susan today. And I just want to acknowledge that I know many of you also have experienced, obviously, loss of family, friends, and some recently. And a lot of people, other than us, are grieving too. So we acknowledge that. This is never a great place to visit. But a lot of us are grieving today, loss of loved ones. And I'm told that the pain of today may lessen over time, but the love and the blessings and the memories of my dad will live on forever. And I hope that is true. Last night we met with the rabbi, and all of us were there. Almost everybody was in that room. And I just realized and was reminded of how much passion and love there is for my dad. And that passion and love from him definitely got into all of us. And it was a really special night and emotional, and I'm glad we were able to do that. I just want to share a couple stories and thoughts that I had with my dad. I mean, I knew him for 55 years, so I got 55 of his 82 years, which is pretty good. But I want to start with most recent. So he passed away, as you know, Monday at 12:03 a.m., and Sherry and I were there with him. It was very peaceful. He was very calm, and it was actually the latest I've ever seen him stay up. And I never went through this with my dad before, so as we were standing there with him, just all these thoughts were going through my head, million thoughts. And, one of them, which came out of nowhere, was as he's about to meet God. It was just like he was so peaceful. And the other was that I really wanted him to make it till midnight. And it was because if he made it till the midnight, he'd get the 13th. And it was like a whole nother day. Like, it's not prorated. He gets credit for all of the 13th. He lived to January 13th. And to me, that was so much better than January 12th. And it was 11:59, and it was like within minutes. And he did it. He did it till the 13th. I was just so happy just to have that extra day of life. And, the last time I really talked to him, so he had his stroke, his last stroke on Christmas Day. Obviously, we weren't busy, and everyone was available. But the night before, I went there and I played racquetball like I was doing Tuesdays, and then he'd always leave me a message that he has leftovers. That was like a thing for like the last year. I'd go there many times during the week and get leftovers. So I went there, and I went inside. A lot of times it's funny. It would just be on the porch. Like, they didn't even want to get up. It'd be on the porch, and I'd just take it and leave. Sometimes I'd leave $1, whatever. But it was. But I went inside, and he had sushi there. And for whatever reason, that night, which I didn't usually do, I actually sat down with Susan and my dad, and we had sushi, and I talked, and it was usually literally I would just pick it up, hi, and then go. But I sat down and I ate that night with them a little bit, and then I got up and I was, see you later. And he's like, will you shut the garage? I think the last thing he said was, will you shut the garage door? And I'm like, sure. And I left. And who knew that morning, he would have had that stroke. But that was the last time we really had a conversation. And it was amazing, because that's like what it was. That was our thing together. And I'm so grateful that I stayed and talked to him and stayed there that night. And I'm just, there's so many memories, but just thinking of things like going back in time. One of my other favorite times with my dad was, so I was going to do jury duty. I got called for jury duty several years ago. And he always told me I would never get picked because who he was, and But the best thing ever was he came to see me, and we had lunch in the Justice Center cafeteria. He knew everybody. I mean, it was unbelievable. He knew the cashiers. He knew every judge. He knew every lawyer. He knew every criminal. Like, these criminals are waving to him. It was unbelievable. And the amount of people that just while we were there for an hour, sat down with him, and he had a story with, everybody. We're walking in the halls. People are mopping the floors. Like, hey, Michael. It was unbelievable. That was his thing. That was his shtick. He loved the Justice Center. He loved what he did. And he was so passionate about it. I just could not believe how many. I'm not saying most, every single person knew him there. It was just unbelievable. Then a couple years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, we loved my dad so much, we moved to Auburn Lakes to be closer to him, to be his neighbor. And that was amazing. I'm so glad we did that. And just so many stories. And one story I want to share is, those that know him again know he loved his golf cart. And had all the grandkids' names on it. It's like a big thing. But anyway, just to show you never stop being a dad, last summer, maybe the summer before, I'll say last summer, I'm on the golf cart with him, and I have my phone out, and he's like, put your phone away while you're driving. I'm like, I'm fine. And he tells me again, David, just put your phone away while you're driving the golf cart. And I'm like, I'm fine. He told me again. I'm like, Dad, I'm 55 years old. I can hold the phone and drive at the same time. He told me if I don't put my phone away, he'll never let me drive that golf cart again. I was 55 years old. It was so crazy. Unfortunately now for my girls, they're getting it from me too. No phones on the golf cart. And then, a memory he shared every year on my birthday, which I don't remember, is every year he would tell me, when it was my birthday, he would tell me, I sat on his lap while they landed on the moon. I was drinking, he was feeding me a bottle. Some people think we never landed on the moon. It's a different story. I don't remember that, but he always shared that story of me feeding me a bottle while they landed on the moon. I thought that was great. Some things I'll miss about him is, I called him multiple times a day. I talked to my dad constantly. I call him on the way to work. I call him during the day. I call him on the way home. I call him all the time. And that's like already, just even since he's in the hospital because he couldn't speak, he wasn't able to talk, I really, really miss that. I even have my phone today. I highly doubt he's going to call, but I will answer if he does. But I miss that. The leftovers, unbelievable. I mean, going there, they'd have, I don't know, they would order so much food because we just lived around the corner, and then I'd walk over and get the leftovers. It was great. It were really good memories. I'm going to miss, talking to him, of course, during all the sports and this and that. And I guess he'll watch from up there as we win the national championship. And sorry, Brad, who's a Notre Dame fan, but hopefully he will get to see that. And, the main thing I'm going to miss is just the family gatherings. Like, if his thing was court, the only thing that was better than that was at our house. Like, he loved, that room there at his house for Thanksgiving and Mother's Day and Father's Day. We had so many parties there. And he would say, he was just so happy and would say he loves having us there all the time. He loved that. It was like the best memories. And seeing my kids, being with my kids, and our dog Leo, and just so many great memories. And one funny thing I would say about my dad, too, is you'll probably hear a couple times, maybe they'll mention about fishing. Like, he loved fishing on that little lake there. And what's funny about it is, and how good he was at fishing. But the thing is, there's only one fish that lives in Auburn Lake. They bonded over all those years. We should have brought the fish with us today because they were friends. My dad would put the thing in the line. The fish would jump into the paddle boat. They would say hi. He'd put them back. But the grandkids were so amazed. It was like, he keeps catching this fish. It was the same one. He never told anyone. And, in closing, it's pretty incredible that he was there for my very, very first breath ever, and I was there for his last. And that's just, I guess, the way it was supposed to be. So we love my dad, and I'm so grateful everyone's here, and he'll be missed forever, but he'll be in our hearts and our memories. So we love you, Dad, and thank you.
Next, we'll call up all of Michael's grandchildren.
Hi, everyone. We're all Michael's grandkids, or as we like to call him, Papa Michael. He was very special to each and every one of us in different ways. He taught us all how to fish, how to drive a golf cart, and the fact that you can actually forget to wear shoes to work. He showed up to every soccer game, track meet, volleyball game, basketball game, dance recital, graduation, birthday, and everything in between. Each time we talked to him, he made us feel like we were his one and only favorite. He worked strenuously in his business and loved his family hard. He was someone who welcomed anyone under his wings and accepted them into his heart. Our Papa Michael was the most selfless, most cherished, and most stubborn man there ever was. Our hearts are broken into a million pieces now that you're gone. But what gives us strength is knowing that you lived a rich, beautiful, and accomplished life. Your legacy will live on, It lives on with the memories you've created and all of the lessons that you've instilled in each of us. It lives on every time we think about your love for our family, being on the water, your best pup, Max, and of course, chocolate milkshakes from McDonald's. But above all, when we think of you, we will think of the unconditional love and sacrifices that you made for our family. We love you so much, Papa Michael.
I think our Papa was truly like one of the most amazing people I've ever met, because he always had such an impact on everybody, such a positive impact on everyone he talked to. Like everyone at his work always knew him, always said hi. I like met like 50 different people when I went there once, and like he was always trying to get me to fish, but I never wanted to. And then now like finally like lately, I've been going fishing so much more, and it's all because of him. He was like. It's just amazing. Like, I'm going to miss him. Everyone's going to miss him so much.
God singles out our ancestor Abraham and makes a covenant with him. God brings him out underneath a starry night sky and says, Al tira Avram, Anochi magen lach, Scharcha harbe meod. Fear not, Abram, his name at the time. I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great. Avram is promised that he will become the father of a great family, a nation that, like stars, can't be counted for multitude. If you knew Michael, you might feel this verse ring true about him. Fear not, I am a shield to you. Michael was a shield, a magen, not only by profession, as a defense attorney, who worked passionately, doing what he loved right up until the very end, but also as a protective spouse, father, grandfather, uncle, and great-uncle. He was someone who spent what I imagine were many of his happiest days looking up at the sky from his boat on the water in Chautauqua, Lake Erie, or Sawmill Creek, where he was doing what he loved best, fishing, boating, or jet skiing, with the teeming multitude God blessed him with, his beautifully blended, uncountable family. A host so numerous, when it converged on the public pool, it quickly became property of Camp Peterson, which began with one single person who looked to the sky, starry-eyed with the promise of what his life could be, and became a great family, a host, which proudly carries on his legacy. Michael was born in Lakewood, New Jersey, where his family had lived for many generations. He enjoyed a close relationship with his two brothers, Joel and Louis, and with his tight-knit town. Always happy, always the jokester, he had a passionate, more fiery side that wasn't content with driving trucks at the truck driving company where he worked. After getting into a heated exchange with his boss at the time, he realized that this big fish needed a bigger pond, that he wanted to go to college, and that he didn't want to work for or under anyone. He wanted to be his own boss. He was educated at Nebraska and transferred to Kent, where he met his first wife, Sheila. Disciplined and dedicated, he worked at Sheila's father's bar during the day and went to law school by night. Michael was motivated by the sincere belief that everyone has the right to a fair trial, except, as his children joked, for us. We were always guilty. Michael started his own practice and got real joy, fulfillment, and a sense of identity from his work which he never really officially retired from. His children remember growing up, picking up the phone with various correctional facilities on the other line, asking for their father. He could be watched on television, on Dateline, bringing his unique brand of fiery passion to bear in the courtroom. We, who recognized what it was, would call it fiercely protective, as the Magain, the shield that he was. Judges, on the other hand, occasionally called it contempt of court. Ryan, you shared a memory of accompanying your father to work one day, watching him scream bloody murder at the judge. You were sure that he would be the one to land himself in prison. In fact, when it concluded, you went up to the judge to apologize on your father's behalf. The judge smiled and said, "I'd rather have 100 Michaels who care enough about their clients to defend them with such passion." He gave freely of his time, and even gave his time freely, often offering pro bono services to friends, friends of friends, and of course family, whenever minor car accidents or the like necessitated the need for legal aid. He was generous, and he was selfless. When his first marriage ended, Michael met the love of his life and partner of 39 years, Susan. The night they met, they were both actually on dates with other people. By a twist of fate, they were introduced to one another. When Michael asked Susan out, she was actually fighting a flu at the time and said no. He took this as rejection, but undeterred, he asked her out again another time. Heeding the words of her friends Barbara, Susan agreed, "You can't discount this one." A man who knew who he was and what truly mattered in life, Michael told Susan on their first date, "If you don't like boating, you might as well forget about this." They took to each other immediately and genuinely fell in love with each other and with each other's families as well. And the rest is history. Family is what mattered most to Michael. Moments spent driving around in the golf cart, proudly named the Grandkids Express, brandishing, as you mentioned, not only all their names, but the names of pets as well. Whether he was driving, often too fast, with his dog Max's paw resting gently on his leg or clutching for dear life, or with a grandkid on his lap, teaching them how to drive, it's family time that he lived for. He treasured trips together where, Sharon, you mentioned, we'd always come back 10 pounds heavier, stopping to eat at every rest stop or downing M&Ms in the car. Michael was a foodie who loved his blazing bills, drinking Yoo-Hoo, Diet Coke, sparkling ice, McDonald's milkshakes, as long as it wasn't a bland glass of water. He was generous. The grandkids shared that they'd always find cash stuffed into their pockets by their grandfather, who wanted them to have everything. Starry sky's the limit. Harley, you shared that if ever you guys saw something in the store window you liked, it was yours. He'd buy it for you. A man of many talents, he was also very handy. Eric, you mentioned that he once fixed your broken Walkman. And by fix, you mean broke into 100 pieces. And then said, "I'll buy you another one." He's remembered as being an amazing grandfather who would get on the ground with you, at times struggling in his older age to get back up. Nothing made him happier than family sleepovers. "Go ask Nana," he'd say, with the understanding that bedtime was 5 p.m. For him, not for you. He was there for all the grandkids' moments, big and small, as you mentioned, dance recitals, graduations, or even just an "I love you" text, as Rachel recalls fondly, or to say "I'm proud of you." Scott, you shared that he was the kind of person everyone wanted to be around, that when you were with him, you always felt that everything was going to be okay, under the protection of his shield. Susan, you shared that he always said he had no regrets because he did what he loved. Michael lives on through all of you and everyone in this room now, in unique and different ways. Whether it's his joyful and passionate approach to life, symbolized in the Chai necklace he passes on to Jonah, and the way he inspired Harley and another to become a lawyer. Was it Sharon, the other lawyer in the family? Eric and Harley to become lawyers, and in the way he inspired a fierce love, loyalty, and prioritization of family. You carry his legacy, and he lives on through you. Leah, you shared that he never hung up the phone. He'd always accidentally leave it hanging, so you could hear him call out to Susan, thinking he had hung up with you. We know it was unintentional. But what if it was intentional? What if he was trying to tell us that you never hang up on family? You always keep the line of communication open. Not even death is a hang-up. Not when you live your life inspired by the kind of Torah that Michael leaves behind. That phone is still connected, it's still on, in all the various ways that you'll continue to feel his presence and embody the life lessons that he leaves behind, in the way you'll continue to be fierce protectors of one another, to show up for each other's moments, big and small, to get the kind of joy and meaning out of life that he wrestled from it. May his memory always be a blessing, and Michael, you'll be so dearly missed. I'll invite everyone to please rise now as we recite the memorial prayer, El Malei Rachamim, God full of compassion. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamramim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Ashchina, B'malot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Akiyam Azhirim, Et Nishmat Meir ben Gedalia V'Rachel, Shehalach Leolamo, V'gan Eden Hemenuchato, Ana Bala Rachamim, Hasirer B'sata Ganafecha Leolamim, Utzror B'tzror Achayim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, Ve'anuach B'shalom Al Mishkavo, V'nomar Amen. Exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Michael Peterson, Meir ben Gedalia V'Rachel, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. At this time, we'll invite the pallbearers up to accompany the casket. And I want to announce Shiva information that Shiva will take place today until 8 p.m. at the Four Seasons. Thursday at Scott and Allison's home at 5089 Lansdowne Drive in Solon from 2 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and again from 6 to 8 in the evening. And Friday, also at the home of Scott and Allison, from 1 o'clock to 4 p.m. Minyan will be held today at 7, tomorrow at 7, and Friday at 2 p.m. Thank you all again so much for being here.
daytime, the sun is